Alafia, I'm Dr. Gloria Lattimore, Peace, host and producer of OmniU Presents the H3O Art of Life show. The title of this show is Reaching Back in the Community. And I have to thank for the title my guest that I am just delighted to have because I've been chasing her down for such a long time. This is Mrs. Cystal Black, and she is the head of Windows of Opportunity. And it's a nonprofit affiliate of the Chicago Housing Authority. And I learned of her work indirectly, even though I should have known it directly, but I did learn of it indirectly. And I'm so excited about the work that she does and the efforts that she makes to get people who have come from public housing to reach back and to give something to the community of value. And so I've invited her here to talk about her work. And we were talking before we came on, and I asked her if she came from or had ever lived in public housing, and she had not. And my question to her is, whence comes your interest in Chicago Public Housing Authority, and how did you come to do the work you do today?
Well, I've been in social service for over 20 years and worked a number of social service agencies in various capacities. And I was working for the then Section 8 housing program and went to a roundtable meeting and learned that Windows of Opportunity was producing or implementing a boys program. And I looked over to my administrator and I said, it's time for me to go back home because I just love the concept of what they were doing. You know, being the executive director of Windows is more than just a job to me, it's my passion. For over 20 years, I've helped kids that were wards of the state. I've reached back and helped kids get through college. So it was just very natural. It was a natural transition for me to go from the Section 8 program as an administrator to a director over to Windows of Opportunity.
All right, and in Windows of Opportunity, since it's a nonprofit affiliate of the Chicago Housing Authority, obviously it is related to, its projects are related to reaching back into public housing.
Exactly.
All right. I want to say to you, if I have not said it before, that I lived for many years in public housing. In fact, I lived in more than one public housing. I started college at the Crane Junior College when I lived in Ogden Courts on the west side. And I finished Chicago Teachers College when I lived in Rockwell Gardens. So during the time that I lived in public housing and had a young family, I was also in school finishing my first degree, which was the bachelor's degree. And I've started teaching with the Chicago Public Schools just on the brink of living in public housing. I moved out the same, almost simultaneous with my move out of public housing, because at that time, if they still exist, there were income limits, and so you couldn't live there. But I had to be forced to leave public housing. And I want to say this before you respond to that my hat is off to Marion Stamps. Marion Stamps was in Cabrini Green during the same period, and she was very active. And you talk about reaching back. Marion Stamps organized Cabrini Green, and she had so many programs, and she was such an advocate for public housing residents, and as was I. And so I think about her when you talk about the people that you give awards to, who have come from public housing, who have risen in the ranks, and who are now giving back in some way, reaching back. Then I think immediately of Marion Stamps, who is the late Marion Stamps, because she has been deceased for some time. So I just want you to know that there are plenty of us around.
Yes,
so if you look for any more, I'll help you find them.
And I appreciate that. And that's really the message that I really try to get out to the public, that, you know, back in the early 60s and 50s and 40s, when African Americans were migrating to Chicago, I would venture to say that over 50% of the Chicago population began their roots in public housing. And unfortunately, in the African American community, oftentimes, we somehow lost our history. You know, the Harriet Tubmans that reached back to pull people to the north, you know, so that they could be free. We've lost that concept. And I'm not going to say that all of us have, but many of us forget. And when I came to Windows, my mission was to create an alumni network that was just far beyond any other alumni network, because Chicago Housing Authority is the third largest housing authority in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And with the plan for transformation, they're tearing down the developments, they're reintegrating families into mixed income neighborhoods, into mixed income communities. And it's really important for us to reach back to the children. As you're aware, there are sometimes 3, 4, 5 generations of residents that live in public housing. And my mission is to decrease that intergenerational cycle through our programming.
Mm-hmm.
And get children to go to college and walk out the door. Thereby, they don't turn around and look for a subsidy. They don't turn around and look for a housing choice voucher. They walk out and become productive members of society.
Mm-hmm.
Thereby, it decreases the homelessness rate in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And public housing then becomes what it was intended to be, and that's transitional housing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, my belief is that in educating the youth and really showing them a difference and broadening their horizons, that we can accomplish that goal. My vision for Windows is really, of the 1,900 housing authorities in the country, I do believe there are only about 5 that have a nonprofit attached to them, such as Windows. And my mission is to create a model program and take it across the country.
How did the nonprofit become attached to Chicago Housing Authority?
Well, actually, this is our 20th year, and the then CEO of the Chicago Housing Authority, Vince Lane, realized that public housing is more than just bricks and mortar. He realized that the families needed some social service arm to assist them with becoming self-sufficient, to provide, to be a broker of services, so to speak, to link them to resources that would make them productive members of society. And so from that dream, Windows of Opportunity was birthed.
And that's 20 years.
20 years,
Okay.
1989.
All right, you've been the CEO all of this time?
No, I actually came in as the director about 7 years ago, and then in 2006 I was appointed as executive director.
All right, it's amazing when you mention what happened in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, because you don't have the years to remember back then, but
Right.
I guess you do know what you're doing and you have read some history. I've lived in public housing at a time when living in public housing was a badge of honor. It
That's
was
right.
very difficult.
That's right.
I was on a waiting list for, I can't tell you how long, I can't tell
Mm-hmm.
you how many times I went down, how many calls I made, what a great effort it was to finally get my family out of the situation that we were in private housing, because I had 6 children. And landlords do not want large families.
right.
So in private housing, when you are able to find housing, sometimes it is substandard and actually hazardous, and at other times the rent is exorbitant because you're charged a penalty for for having a large family, and so they make you pay a lot of money because they know you don't have a lot of choices. So my husband worked at the post office, and our income was always somewhere other than where it needed to be in order to get into low-income housing. And then they put in some federally funded housing, which raised the income levels up, and we were able finally to get off the waiting list and to move in. And we lived in Ogden Courts for a while, and then they built the Rockwell Gardens, and they offered us another apartment in Rockwell Gardens, which had a few more accommodations than the one that we were in Ogden Courts. And so we moved to Rockwell Gardens. But we were always active in the public housing buildings where we lived. And so Ogden Courts, it was easy to organize. There were 2 buildings, so it was easy to organize 2650 and 2710. When we got to Rockwell Gardens, you had something like 6 buildings or 8 buildings, and they were high-rise, and it was more difficult, but nonetheless, we did do it. And with the consequence that we had a lot of influence about what went on and what happened to us, what decisions were made about our well-being. But when I was growing up, the social workers, the postal workers, the nurses,
That's right,
were all living in places like Ida B. Wells.
That's right.
You know, that was sort of like middle income housing.
it was.
And to me, it was such a disappointment to find the deterioration that I saw years later after I had outlived my tenure there, because it was transitional. I did finally move out of it because I got a college degree and had an income working for the Chicago board. So I was not able to live there anymore, but I loved my neighbors and thought that public housing had saved us from the vultures who held the reins of private housing and made it so difficult for people with children.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's ironic that you said that. I mean, just talking about the history that you have in public housing, because back then there were a lot of 2-parent families. And unfortunately, after the war, you know, and this is just a little bit of the history that I know. After the war, a lot of the war heroes came back, and you know, from my understanding, a lot of them were on drugs, and so there was a separation in the families. And so it ended up being, you know, a lot of moms, single moms in public housing, which we have a very large amount of single moms in public housing. But back then, there were 2-parent families, and education was of utmost importance to most of those families. You had a strong role model, you know, at the head of the family. And unfortunately, over the years, education became less of a priority. You know, I don't quite know what happened.
Social forces.
Social forces, yeah, kind of forced it downstream. And so now we're at a point where I understand that there's a book out that says, well, you know, that the late Richard Mayor Daley said that public housing was a mistake. I don't believe that it was a mistake.
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't believe it was a mistake. It created just a network of phenomenal people. It really did. I am a product of 2 public housing residents. My mom was Wentworth Gardens. My dad was Ida B. Wells. And so people ask me everywhere I go, everywhere I speak, well, did you come out of public housing? Well, technically, yes. You know, but you know, unfortunately, it came to that point. And you know, the now Mayor Daley saw the need to integrate the families into broader communities. And they have some beautiful homes now. You know, they have some really beautiful homes. The plan for transformation is 10 years in, and they're relocating residents into the broader community. And so, you know, CHA has done a very good job of trying to bring in additional social services to acclimate the residents to their new environments. But our goal at Windows is to really work with the youth. You know, we strongly believe that the intergenerational cycle will decrease if we continue to educate our residents. To date, we have 3 programs right now. Our scholarship program began back in 1993, and to date we've given over $850,000.
Really?
We have kids all over the world. We have one young lady at Yale.
Tell me about that. That's an interesting story.
The young lady at Yale?
Yes.
You heard about that story.
I heard that story. You told it at one of your benefits.
I did. Tamika Bethel actually is a phenomenal young lady. She grew up in LeClaire Courts with her grandmother. Her mother was, I think, suffering from substance abuse. And she ended up going to Lincoln Park High School. and received a 4-year scholarship. She knew that she wanted to become something one day. She didn't know what, and received a 4-year scholarship to Yale. And she is currently at Yale as a sophomore with a 3.3 GPA. And we're extremely proud of her. We have another young man that actually spoke at Barack's inauguration, Jeffrey Perkins, and he got a 4-year scholarship through Posse Foundation at DePaul University. He wants to become a senator. So those are some of the examples that I really try to relate to the public, that there is still a lot of talent behind the walls of CHA. This is not a forgotten generation. You know, we have a lot of artists, a lot of future doctors, lawyers, you know, and I try to get the alum to come back so kids can see that they too can make it. You know, a lot of times today, they don't have the family and social networks that you may have had or that your children had in public housing, because it was more of a family environment, you know, and there was that motivation from within the household to get your education, you know, move on and move out and move up. And unfortunately, a lot of the children that we deal with don't have that motivation. And so it takes someone from the outside to say, you can do this. You can do this if you work hard at it. And a lot of our alumni have been extremely gracious. Sam Mendenhall was named one of the top 40 attorneys in the country. African-American attorneys in the country under 40.
From what public housing?
He's from LeClaire.
LeClaire, okay.
And he was one of our honorees. And Sam gives back tremendously, personally, through his corporation, through his law firm. He comes out to speak to the kids. The current CEO, Louis Jordan, is from Henry Horner. He is, I mean, and he is all about giving back to the children. You know, he believes strongly in the children. Herb Kent, the Cool Jet.
Where is he
from? Ida B. Wells.
Is that right?
Yes. Herb has been phenomenal. You know, he's just been phenomenal in coming out, speaking to the kids, offering to take them on tours of the station. You know, he also teaches over at Chicago State. Commissioner Jerry Butler. You know, every event we have, he's there. Commissioner Joe Barrios, believe it or not, is from public housing. And a lot of people don't know, last year we had Commissioner Joe Barrios, and you know, people were kind of taken aback, and he was very clear that that's where his roots were from. Believe it or not, Portillo's.
Really?
Dick Portillo, the owner, who now lives in California. And unfortunately, his wife was having surgery. We were going to honor him this year. He is from public housing. He's from Cabrini Green. This year, we'll be honoring Congressman Bobby Rush.
He's from public housing?
He's from Cabrini Green. Yasmin Bates, who runs the philanthropic arm of the Harris Bank.
Which, you have to identify which segment, which public housing project?
I can't recall
hers?
which one she came out of. I can't recall which one she came out of. We have Mary Mitchell that came out of Robert Taylor from the Chicago Sun-Times.
All right. And
God,
through the years, because you actually had a documentary last year at your benefit that you showed, and you showed various people who were, as you say, alums of Chicago public housing, and I was amazed to find out that some of these people were public housing residents at some point in their lives.
Most people are. Most people are. You know, it's really, really interesting to have conversations with some people. For some, it's very embarrassing. Unfortunately.
Why is that? Why would that be?
I have no idea. But I found that for some people, it's an embarrassment for them to say that they came out of public housing. And for others, they say it out loud because they don't forget where they come from. But I have had experiences where I've asked people, you know, to reach back, and they said, no, I don't want any parts of, you know, Chicago Housing Authority. I spent enough time there. You know, which is unfortunate, but it's less than those that will say we're willing to help. And that those are the people that we're looking for. It's not just the Herb Kents, the Dr. Peace, you know, Gloria Lattimore pieces. It's the policeman, it's the teacher, it's the nurse. We're looking for anyone that has the time, talent, or energy to reach back and adopt a kid, you know, mentor a kid. It doesn't take a lot. You know, everybody thinks it takes money. It doesn't always take money to run a program.
Right.
We have kids that are in the Boys and Girls Club, and you know, my understanding is that they are holding on to 8,000 kids that need mentors. You know, so there are, I would venture to say that half of the city, African American population, came out of public housing.
Really?
And if every person gave $10, you know, to assist a child, you would not believe the help that we could give to these children.
How are you getting funding in order to conduct the program that you conduct? I know you have a benefit coming up, and the proceeds from your benefit goes to the work that you do.
Exactly.
But one benefit probably can't do the whole thing. It
No.
can't take care of all of the expenses of your program. So what other things what other sources do you have?
Well, we have a contract with the CHA that helps us with our general operating expenses. We're fortunate to have some very long-time supporters of Windows that support our scholarships. Harris Bank, Siemens, KPMG. We have a number of sponsors, Ariel Capital Management, Loop Capital Markets. You know, there are a number, Shack, Quadell. Number of our sponsors have been loyal sponsors. We do a lot of fundraising, individual fundraising, as well as corporate foundation fundraising. We go for grants. As a matter of fact, we have a Next Step program, a 7-week summer program that's financed through Siemens. And Siemens has been very gracious, a very gracious partner in supporting us with our children. This particular program, I'm just so very proud of, is a computer-based program that increases language arts and math skills. And we partner with IIT to use one of their computer labs. Well, last year, our kids came up 2 to 5 grade levels in 7 weeks.
Wonderful.
One of my children went from a 2.4 to a 3.2 in 1 year with their GPA. This past summer, I had a kid go up 7 grade levels.
Really?
Yes, it's an incredible program, and as a result of the success of that program, we just received a grant of $750,000 from this Illinois State Board of Education to expand that program. So we will be doing a pilot with 90 kids at Dunbar High School to assist them with increasing some of the scores over there, and really helping these kids move on and go to college.
How do you identify the children in your program?
I go through an interview process.
Okay.
I send out applications. You know, we do a mass marketing campaign, and we send out applications. And it's my belief that we are not going to help everyone. We're a very small organization. However, those that we know that we can reach, and that's not the cream of the crop. Sometimes you may have a kid that may have a 3.0, but they don't have the attitude to move forward. And so I think what Windows has done is become very good at working with kids that are workable, that have the attitude to move on and the motivation to move on. You know, everybody reaches for the cream of the crop. We're reaching for those kids that have the potential. If you have a kid with a 3.5, they're going to make it. They're going to make it, you know, and then that's not to say they don't need the assistance. We want to reach those that need a little bit of an extra push, you know, to get them motivated to move on and increase their scores. But I'm real pleased with that program, very pleased.
Do you have a counseling portion where you actually give any kind of guidance, say when if a child is in a class or a program or a project and they have some other issue going on outside of that, do you have some provision for that, or is that something that you have to refer?
We do refer. Windows
Okay.
is not a direct service provider.
Okay.
We're a very small agency, but we're not a direct service provider. So the CHA has a contract with Family Works Programs, which is called a Family Works Program, and we refer them to the CHA
Okay.
for additional social services if
Okay.
necessary.
Okay. So this year you're honoring 7 people.
7 people.
And you have a board. You have a board of directors.
I have a board of
and,
directors.
And I suppose that's how you selected the 7 people that you're honoring.
Well, we actually had the old honorees select the 7 people we're honoring this year.
Okay, now that's interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me something about the old honorees, those that you can remember, say from last year, that may come to mind as people who would help you, formulate this board, this set of honorees this year.
Well, we had Louis Jordan, he's again the current CEO of CHA. He's constantly calling me saying, call this person, call that person. So he made a couple of suggestions. This year we're honoring Lester Coleman. He's the president and CEO of Coleman Development Corp.
Okay.
He's a former resident that also employs residents in his development corporation.
All right.
Joe Barrios suggested Dick Bertillo. I'm trying to think of the other honorees that we had last year. Sam Mendenhall suggested Yasmin Bates. So they're, they call us with various names, and we run a list of names to the past honorees, and then they take a vote.
So now that you are on the eve of your program, of the gala that you will be sponsoring, tell me something about that. What goes into that plan? Where is it going to be, and when is it going to be, and who's going to be the headliner, and what all about that?
Well, this particular event is called Night with the Stars, Reaching Back to Push Ahead. And it will be at the Hyatt Regency Crystal Ballroom on October 29th. We will have a VIP reception from 5 to 6, and then our program starts at 6 p.m. Marion Brooks from NBC5 will be the MC, and we will have an evening of dinner and music and a lot of dancing and fun. I'm very honored because the awards that they receive are by an award-winning artist, Deborah Hand, who I happen to know. And I asked her to create a special award so that, a lot of people get awards all the time. They either get a plaque or they get, some kind of memento.
Cookie cutter.
Yeah, cookie cutter. And I really wanted something very special for these honorees. And 3 years ago, I called her, and she created a phenomenal award, which we call the Touching the Spirit Award. So the award that the honorees receive will actually be worth some money one day. And she's been very gracious. It's art. Exactly, it's art. And she's been very gracious in not only creating it, but producing it for the past 3 years.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And who will be the entertainment?
The entertainment will be Teresa Griffin, Chicago's very own.
Okay.
Who is a phenomenal singer. She does a one-woman show, and we're very pleased to have her on board. We also have a Touching the Spirit media partner, and that will be Clear Channel. They have been phenomenal in providing us radio time each year for free, which has been phenomenal because radio time is not cheap. And our Reaching Back corporate partner will be Siemens.
All right.
For the work that they've done with our students.
Now, I was there last year, and I remember that there was a young man that you presented who had been actually an intern at a funeral home on the South Side, and these owners had allowed this young man to come in and apprentice under them. Tell me how you came to do that sort of thing, and if you do more of that sort of thing.
We do. We actually do. Carl is a very special story for me. he is truly the fruit of our labor. Carl wrote a letter when I first became a director at Windows of Opportunity and asked for a scholarship. He didn't quite meet the criteria, and I brought him in and interviewed him. And he said, if you give me a chance, I promise you, I will make you proud. And we gave him a scholarship for 4 years. Well, when I became executive director, I wanted to do an internship program as a continuum of the scholarship program and asked my then director to find some internships. And Carl was going into mortuary science. And we called the Callahan Funeral Home, and they were gracious enough. Ironically, they were public housing residents, former public housing alum. They were gracious enough to, provide him with an internship. Well, about a year and a half later, close to Christmas, I was on my way to a funeral of a friend's father. And I was walking toward the church, and I saw him from a distance, and I said, well, it's really a small world. I said, well, sweetheart, what are you doing here? He said, Miss Black, I prepared the deceased. And I looked, and I said, you what? He said, I prepared the deceased. And I mean, unfortunately, in the funeral, I could not stop smiling. I was just so happy that we had touched his life. So the internship program, and today he is a funeral director at Callahan. He is the perfect story of what Windows is about. It's really about reaching for these kids and providing them with opportunities, broadening their horizons, and really creating productive members of society. So we are looking for people that can provide interns. We're looking for people that can be a mentor. As you remember, Carl said when he came to the Callahans, he was in gym shoes and jeans. And when you saw him, he was in a suit and a red tie. And those are the fruits of our labor. A lot of people say, well, how does it feel to, run the nonprofit of CHA? It's not about that. Again, this is not just a job for me, it's my passion. I feel that this is what I was created for. And I'm very pleased to have a staff that is just as passionate as I am about helping these children. I'm not the executive director that just sits in the office. I go out and reach out and touch each one of them, because I want them to know we care, not just a blanket, oh, we really care about you. And, I think the term, our youth, our future is so loosely, overused. I think they are our future. But what are we all doing to help them, create a better future? That's the key. It's how can we all reach back to help our future?
Where are some places, or what are some of the kinds of business you could see as being possibly places where internships could be created? Because many times people don't know how to help. Right. So you have to show them, you have to tell them how it is what you do. Because I at one point had a grant which enabled me to offer some classes at the Southside Community Arts Center. And we offered classes in photography and videography and airbrushing, the kinds of things that young people can actually make money doing. I was thinking that, we at all these graduations and certainly many weddings, you always have some hired videographer. Well, young people can learn to do that. Exactly. They can learn to handle a camera, they can learn to edit footage, they can learn to do whatever it takes to produce an event or a program. And so somebody who does that, who has a private business doing that, can do that. Or down here at Cable Access Network, we have classes where people can come and they can go through the orientation and learn what it takes, and it isn't hard. They learn to do a great many things. They have a great many classes that are offered down here. They're affordable. And so they can learn how not only to do videography, but we actually have this studio that we're sitting in, that they can actually produce shows and then go on from there perhaps to something more, or perhaps stay in this outfit and extend their careers. But the point is that learning how to be a photographer, you know, weddings, people who are getting married hire photographers, they hire videographers. And then young people are very crazy about airbrushing. They like it on their t-shirts and their gym shoes and on all sorts of other places where it doesn't belong necessarily. But when I think about a person in business who does not think about the possibility of having somebody come in, a young person who's interested in this, who wants to know how to do this, who would like to go in business doing this, if they would open their door, and especially if they have somebody who is a sponsor. It's not like taking a stranger off the street.
Exactly.
But it's you've already interviewed these people. You can vouch for them. And plus they have a recourse in case this person doesn't work out. They have someone to tell that to, and a way to manage any difficulties or issues that may arise. So what kinds of businesses do young people that you interview show an interest in, and what kinds of businesses ought to be calling you up on the phone saying, I would like to take an intern from you? Any, just
All
whatever anybody is doing.
Whatever anybody's doing. Again, we have currently, we just made our scholarship decisions, and we have over 80 kids that are running the gambit from architecture to massage therapy. It just varies. So anyone who's willing to help that may have an internship, we will definitely try to match them. If they want to call our office, I can give the number.
You can give the number.
Thank you, which is 312-786-6600.
Okay.
We'd be happy to take their name, invite them to our alumni networks, and really work with them to get a match for a kid to have that opportunity.
Right.
And you're right, a lot of people don't know how to give
right.
And it takes a lot of effort, time and effort, to do the matches. And naturally, we're a small organization. A lot of people think because we are attached to the Chicago Housing Authority, oh, well, they have money. Well, we are separate of the Chicago Housing Authority, so it still takes dollars. And every dollar used towards scholarships is tax deductible. And I'm very happy to say that we have a very small staff, but we do very big things, and we're trying to do bigger things in the community, and we're trying to touch lives. And I would just ask that your viewing audience, if any of them began any of their roots in public housing, to please contact us and help. It's just so very important.
What are the ages of the children that you work with?
Well, we work with a number of children. Our holiday party that we partner with CHA and the Chicago Bulls, we give anywhere from 500 to 1,000 kids toys. They range anywhere from 2 to 18.
Okay, but when we're speaking of internships and scholarships.
Internships and scholarships, you're looking at kids 16 through about 25.
Okay. They need to be in school, or what? There are some criteria. What is the criteria?
They must have a 2.5 GPA.
Okay.
They must be attending a certification program, two-year junior college or 4-year university, or grad school. We do have some graduates.
They have to be level. They have to be in school.
Yes.
Okay. They have to have a 2.5 or better
GPA.
Are there any other criteria?
No. Just that they're a public housing or housing choice voucher holder.
Okay, okay. They can't be former public housing, because I can find you some people that fit that. They can't be second generation public housing.
No,
well, you talked about a lot of talent behind those walls, but a lot of those walls are disappearing.
A lot of them are. A lot of them are. But CHA has done a good job of tracking the residents, and so they keep in constant contact with them through correspondence. They have the Family Works providers that go out to check on the residents. So, they've done a good job with trying to maintain that connection with them so that they can provide them with whatever resources they need. And through those resources, we actually market to the residents to learn more about our services.
How many public housing developments are there still remaining? Do you have any idea?
I don't have the actual number, unfortunately. I don't have those
Well,
numbers.
of those that are remaining, how are you working with specific ones, or
we work with all public housing?
you work with all?
That's why Windows is unique. There are a lot of organizations, say for instance, the Boys and Girls Club. They do service some of our kids. They may have an office in Cabrini, so they service the Cabrini area. Windows of Opportunity is unique in that we encompass everybody. You know, they can be a housing choice voucher holder, they can be a relocated resident. The difference is the relocated residents were the ones that were relocated recently due to the plan for transformation. When you say former, you know, 10, 15 years ago, you know, we unfortunately we can't accommodate those requests. However, those that are former relocated residents, we can. So Windows is unique in that we encompass the entire CHA population. So.
What transformation? What is the plan for transformation? What are they? I see a lot of missing public housing, but are they planning to? What are they planning to do? Planning not to have high-rise buildings, not to have public housing as we knew it. Is there some other public housing plan in this plan for transformation?
You know, I don't want to speak on CHA's behalf,
Okay.
but in terms of just to speak briefly, the plan for transformation is the largest undertaking in the country, and their plan was to tear down the dilapidated buildings and acclimate residents to mixed income communities. So some of the developments, I think that were 7 units and under, will be rehabbed, are being rehabbed. They're beautiful. And others that are above 7 units have been torn down, and those residents have been moved to other buildings throughout the city. You know, so they may be in a 2-unit building, they may be in a house, you know, but it really provided them an opportunity to go beyond their square mile of what they were accustomed to live in the broader community of Chicago.
Well, I'm pretty sure that some people were not didn't go willingly, because sometimes you are familiar with the neighborhood that you live in and the people who are there, and you just don't want to be in a foreign area, an area. And of course, you know, with a lot of gang activity and so forth, you know, there's all this question of turf and what street organization do you belong to, and, you know, so you change in schools and you coming in, and teenagers particularly have a lot of challenges when they have to move out of the neighborhoods where they live and move into new neighborhoods where there's already some established street organization who's calling the shots. So it's not as easy as it appears to be. You're not moving furniture. You're moving people.
You're moving people.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a very large undertaking. It's been a very large undertaking, and they have tried to implement all of the services possible to assist the residents with becoming acclimated to their new communities.
So what does that portend for your program if they keep removing buildings and they keep moving people? Many of these people have been moved to suburban areas and to distances. How will you continue your program to service public housing recipients if they disappear?
Well, you know, there are still some developments that are remaining. Cabrini is still being rehabbed. Ida B. Wells is now Oakwood Shores. You know, some of the families have moved into Oakwood Shores. So there will always be public housing. So it would be facetious for me to say that there will be no developments left. But they are making them bigger and better. You know, they're renewing them, and the residents will still be there. So we will always have children that we can reach through either those that have opted to move out and receive a voucher to move into houses or a 2-unit building. We can still reach those kids to provide them with opportunities. You know, because the end result is they're still in a subsidy. You know, so
it appears that I worked at Northeastern Illinois University's Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies for many years, and that's of course across the street from Ida B. Wells. And then of course Ida B. Wells is no longer there, and they have this new development. But it appears to me that that's a new income level. That's another population, because those look very much like townhouses. They look very much like if not middle income, at least low middle income.
that's what they were designed to be.
Okay.
They were
So
actually
where do the
designed to look like it.
really low income people, because they're not over there in that housing development.
Some of them are.
Some of them are.
Yes.
And how are they there?
Some of them are. Some of them are actually subsidized.
Okay.
Some of them are mixed income, you know, and some of them are middle market paying tenants.
Okay.
So some of those residents opted to take a voucher and move on. They gave them several choices. So they are still, some of them are still there,
Okay.
believe it or not.
All right. And you are still servicing some people from that area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are actually, the new program that we have, Dunbar, all of our children basically came out of either Ida B. Wells or Madden Wells or Dearborn.
What's your population? What's the population of young people that you service? I mean, currently, you said you had 80 scholarships just recently. Okay.
Over the course of a year, I would say Wendell's reaches out to over 5,000 kids.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a holiday party, as I told you.
I was going to ask you to talk about some of the other things, because you did mention this holiday party.
Yeah, we've been partnering with the Chicago Bulls for the past 7 years, 8 years, I believe. And we provide a holiday party for 500 to 1,000 children. It just depends. We actually, last Saturday, we did a scholarship fundraiser at Chicago State University, which was called Rock the Runway. And we invited 500 children out to that to see a really high fashion show. And then we have, we also partner with seniors, the senior department of CHA to give senior gala, which is 2,000 seniors.
Really?
It's a party for 2,000 seniors. It's the largest party in the city for seniors. Donna Dixon is the director over that program, and she's been doing a wonderful job of putting that program together, and we assist with some of the funding for that. It's held at the Hyatt Regency every year. I think the tickets sell out in like 5 minutes for this particular event. And then we do a back-to-school bash every year, where we partner with the Park District to give away book bags and school supplies and uniforms. We give away about 600 to 1,000 book bags, school uniforms. And then we have a what's called our Public Housing Nutrition Network, where it's a couple of pantries that we provide funding for to feed families, like in Cabrini and a few other places. So.
And you say you have a small staff?
Yes.
And you do all of these things
Yes,
with a
we do.
small staff?
Yes.
So you just concentrate on one thing at a time then?
All of it at one time.
All of it at one time. You have all these things going for this year, and I'm pretty sure you have some irons in the fire toward next year.
Yes, we are gearing up for our program at Dunbar.
Okay.
And we are gearing up for other fundraisers as well.
Okay.
So we're really trying to increase our alumni network. That's what we're working on right now, because we really not only want them to come back to help the children, it's for them to network as well. You know, a lot of them are entrepreneurs today. One of our, Clyde Hammond, is one of our honorees this year. He owns Summit Laboratories,
Okay.
which is in Blue Island, and I do believe he is the largest distributor and manufacturer of African American hair care products in the country.
Really? Is that Summit Lab?
Yes.
They're in
Blue Island.
no, well, they may have moved. They were in Hazel Crest.
That's
yeah.
him.
Okay.
He's alum. He's being honored.
What public housing project?
I don't remember. I'm
It
sorry.
surprises me to hear that because you just never know. who
Yeah,
you're gonna-
you really don't.
Okay.
LaRue Martin, UPS. I don't know if you know of LaRue. LaRue is known all over the community because he donates a lot of time, energy, and money into the community. He's a great person. LaRue also comes over and gives jobs to residents, you know, so he's given back quite a bit in the community. Pamone Rami, who is a movie producer.
I know Pamone.
You know Pamone? He's one of our honorees this year.
Which public housing? Do you remember? I know you
don't.
can't match.
I can't remember
Have you ever
everyone.
had one of those pictures made like they do for the yearbook? You know, high schools and colleges have yearbooks. Well, high schools, I don't guess colleges do. But high schools have, you know, the pictures of all the people who are alumni together or who are graduating together. And it would be interesting to look at a group photo and just see who all you recognize in this group photo.
It would. I
Yeah.
mean, Judge Michael Stutley, I don't know if you're familiar with him, phenomenal judge that works with youth in the Markham Court District. You know, there's just hundreds. As a matter of fact, Maurice White and Maurice and
Earth, Wind,
Verdine,
and Fire.
Earth, Wind, and Fire came out of public housing. Ivory Wells, you know, so there's just a number of people that came out of
I bet there are a lot of entertainers who came out too as well.
A lot of entertainers, a lot of basketball players came out. I can't recall his name right now. His name starts with a P. Came out of Loudoun Homes. You know, but there just a number of them.
Well, in some cases, people grew out of public housing, and in later years it seemed that they survived it.
They did.
You know, because in later years with the, as I pointed out, social forces, and because I was an activist in my community, I'm well aware of the kinds of social forces that we were always struggling with, well-meaning community organizations who wanted to take the autonomy into their hands, the community autonomy. In other words, we were developing our own programs and doing for self, doing things on our own behalf. And we had community organizations who came in and wanted to direct that, who wanted to tell us what to do and tell us when and tell us how. And so we sometimes had running battles with these well-meaning community organizations who wanted to come in and run the community for the community. We very often had to back them off. We also had to call our ward committeemen and our aldermen on the carpet about various things that improvements that we needed. We had overcrowded schools, which was the main issue that most of us had because we all had children. And so I was in public housing during the period when they had the so-called Willis wagons. And so we had overcrowded schools that needed, you know, certainly that needed to be resolved. And we had a lot of things that we were struggling against, trying to raise our families, you know, and trying to get them educated and trying to keep other people from telling us what to do and preventing us from doing the things that we thought we needed to do for our own on behalf, and trying to elect the people we thought would represent us. It was a real struggle. And as long as it seems that there were people who were willing to resist and to take responsibility for the community, you had a different kind of situation than when you had this. And we had single mothers and all of that. So it wasn't the single family households as much as it was. There was just too much stuff going on in the areas and the wards around us that impinge upon the quality of our lives.
Right.
And so at some point people had to start surviving rather than thriving as a result of public housing. But I'm so happy to know that there is somebody like you, because I know you, and I know when you say I'm passionate about it, I know you are passionate about it. And so I'm glad that you're the executive director of Windows of Opportunity, and that you have all these grandiose plans. And I plan to do what I can to give you some assistance, and I hope that your telling this story on this show will gain a lot of interest, and that people will want to come out of the woodwork and identify themselves to you so that they can help you do this work.
I pray that they will, and I thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, I thank you so much for finally taking advantage of this opportunity that I have been offering you for a very long time.
We greatly appreciate it.
All right. So your benefit is October 29th.
October 29th
at the Hyatt Regency.
At the Hyatt Regency.
Right.
Tickets are $150.
You can't say that. We'll
You'll
edit
delete
that
it?
out.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, we know that these benefits cost money, because obviously you have to have the funds to give the benefit. You know, and then of course, if there's going to be any proceeds left to put into the program, then it has to be built into the cost of the ticket. But some of that has to be tax deductible. Yes. Because you're a non-for-profit organization, and so it's not a waste of
taxpayers' money,
and plus you get to have a good time and dress up and look cute.
Yes, you do.
Right.
Actually, the proceeds from this benefit support 3 different events. It supports Thanksgiving food baskets for 500 families. It supports our holiday initiative party for our children, and it supports senior gala.
Okay.
So that's what this benefit actually supports.
Okay.
So if they come tonight with the stars, then they will be supporting 3 major initiatives.
Well, very good. I'm very happy that you finally, as I said, I've been after you for a long time to come, because what I'd like to do is encourage other people to want to do the same thing. Not everybody can be the executive director of a non-for-profit organization and write grants and affiliate themselves with institutions and and get support that way. But all of us can do something in some way to reach back,
Definitely.
to reach for our community and help, as you say, reaching back to push forward, to help push our community forward. And I'm happy to know that even though you are second generation or an indirect Chicago public housing person, that you took an interest in that particular population, and you are concentrating your energies there, because you're a high energy lady. So they got the right one, baby, when they got you.
Thank you
yes,
so much.
indeed. I don't
Thank
think
you
they
so
could have
much.
picked a better person.
I appreciate that.
Okay. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 29th of October.
Thank you.
Okay.
It was a pleasure.
It was a great pleasure. Cystal Black.